What's so great about this series is that it's so jam-packed with ideas, such as this fascinating dialogue about letting what happens happen and wielding things into existence because you have new information. Has this series and its ideas caused any sort of welcomed disruption to your thinking, perspective, or creative process? Perhaps you've engaged with forks in the road differently as a result?
A great question. I definitely feel it has made me question things more delicately
Mm.
and question maybe big life decisions with more, I don't know, deliberation, I suppose. I find that some of that has been useful and some of it has been entirely destructive. But I'm hoping that the audience will have it the other way around.
Yeah, I feel like when you go out of this, you watch the show, you're definitely it's human nature to ask these questions even without the show in front of you, but it paints this picture. You see all these perspectives and all these different questions and how people perceive this machine and what it means. But I just think it asks those questions, but then you become a little more intentional in how you move forward in life. And I think that is helpful in from here this point forward, making decisions and kind of looking at your life in a different way.
Right, right. Like one thing I really love about this series is how it takes time to poke fun, such as showing Dusty riding a scooter through town, waving at people while the song Yeah by Usher and Co. is playing. But then the series will pause to show Cass having a meaningful conversation about motherhood and making choices for herself without pushing anything on her daughter. Like, it's remarkable that it can go from there to that. So what did it mean for you both that David provided this balance, and was there any sort of maybe mental gymnastics to create a through line between those two areas as actors, or maybe that was just left to the behind the cam people?
I think we all just trusted David, trusted his vision. We all had our like individual assignments and we stayed focused on those things and make sure we're bringing our best to the table so that all the ingredients, once it's mixed together, brings David's vision to life. But I will say, watching the series, it finally clicked what this show was, and because tonally it's so different. Like you said, it covers the board, right? But that's what life is. Life is very, you know, ambidextrous, I guess, in that way. Like life can juggle multiple things at once. And I think while you're in it and you're living and you're working the art, you're so focused on your scenes and your storyline and your moments. But when you step back and get to watch the series on its feet, that's when it really comes to life. And you're like, oh my gosh, David is a genius. And it's a beautiful, beautiful way he threads it together.
What's so great about your work is how you weave in all these exciting ideas into your narrative. And I can't help but be curious about what goes into developing your projects and writing. Like, do you have these ideas tucked away in your back pocket and you just puzzle fit into the right project, or do you write in a more linear fashion where these things kind of come up more organically like they feel in the show?
I definitely write in a more linear fashion, and with the help of an amazing team in the writer's room. You know, we started with the pilot script that I had written based on the book by Emma Walsh, but then it was really open to the writers to talk about where we could go with all of it. I had some kind of tent poles for the season, but I hadn't figured it all out. And, you know, we spent a day in the writer's room just brainstorming what are all the things you could get on a card if there was a machine in your town that for $2 could tell you your life potential. What could life potential mean, and what might that mean for different characters? So it's a combination of having enough ideas to build off of, but then being open to new discoveries in the writing room.
So I'm curious to know more about the writing room sessions. Like, how exciting is it really to just plant these thematic seeds with your collaborators, even the directors, and to see how it blossoms? How has your writing staff and even your actors challenged your thinking with your interpretations of your work?
Well, I mean, the writer's room was such a great alchemy of people from diverse backgrounds and perspectives. And, you know, in a show that's an ensemble show, that's especially important. So, you know, they brought so many interesting ideas. And I think we all liked the idea of this show being a bit of a puzzle, that you could recognize little Easter eggs in the early episodes as you got later in the season. So I always look at it as coats of paint, that we kind of go through the entire season once, and then we go back through it again and back through it again. And each time, now that you know where you're going a little bit more, you can plant the seeds earlier and you can connect pieces that weren't connected before. And so it is, you know, it's an ongoing process of trying to build these layers so that by the time you're watching the show, you see things upon repeat viewings that you maybe missed the first time.
Do you dig into the science of your comedy when you go in from project to project? Because it's fun to see like Chris O'Dowd like find these unique ways to, like, it's like a blink if you'll miss the jokes sometimes.
I mean, the only thing I could say is that I try to write character-driven comedy. I'm not a great joke writer, so having the right actor and then finding the way to capture that actor's voice, it's an ongoing collaboration. And so what's fun about that is the style of comedy is always slightly different based on who you're working with. So with Chris, it's been really fun to try to write to his voice and to let him play with the words and create something fun together.
What about you, Mr. Hubbard? What are you going to be?